Iran. I never ask you to stop scrolling, so please stop scrolling. It looks like a ground invasion of Iran is being planned for, and active duty military units are now getting deployment orders. The 82nd Airborne Division has been told to cancel training exercises and become deployable. Same with 3rd Special Forces Group, the 18th Corps Headquarters Command, and these GI crisis lines and conscientious objector lines are blowing up because deployment orders for a ton of other units are coming through. And I'm still waiting for confirmation if my old unit, the 75th Ranger Regiment, is getting stood up to Ready Force 1 to become globally deployable within 48 hours. So, this looks like, if it's not a bluff, all the things are going into place.
I actually just got off the phone with my second kid, B. A lot of y'all know her. She's been on my channel. She's a pre-law student, poli-sci major, and she called me specifically to talk about this issue. And when I say that my kids are so much more insightful and intelligent than I am, that they always bring that unique perspective, they always really open my eyes. I want to make it very clear here that the things I'm going to be talking about in this video are overwhelmingly things that my kid said in this conversation, and she said that I could share them here with you all. But if at any point in the next few minutes you're like, damn, that's a really good point, that's not my point, that's B's point. She and I were saying we'd both seen a number of social media posts over the last few days where folks are basically saying like, okay, if we're going to do boots on the ground war of aggression in Iran, and the US military, the US government is going to go send our sons and daughters overseas to die for what? For what? Lockheed Martin? So they can get all of those Defense Department contracts to build weapons for the war machine in the vain attempt to distract us from the Epstein files and to protect all of the pedophiles in our government, to distract from Donald Trump and the Republicans trying to fuck with the midterms all over the place, for the oil companies, for Bibi Netanyahu, for Vladimir Putin. Like basically, if our sons and daughters have to go fight and die for all of these guys, then why does Donald Trump's son not have to go? Look at the hypocrisy. And B and I were both saying, well, that's not the right argument to be putting forth. It's not, well, if our sons and daughters have to go die for the billionaires, if our sons and daughters have to go die for dictators in foreign countries, then Donald Trump's son should also have to. The sons of the super rich should also have to get drafted and go die overseas. One, we're not going to have a draft, y'all. Like that's not going to happen. I said in another video earlier, like that would be political suicide for the Republicans. Nobody wants this war except for a couple of religious freaks in the military who think, including Pete Kegsbreath, who think that this is a holy war that's going to bring about the second coming of Jesus, and that's why we have to go attack Iran. Overwhelmingly, Americans do not want this war. And let's say it is boots on the ground. Let's say all of these members of the military who have volunteered, right? Have volunteered, they go overseas. The American people are going to be like, this is dumb. Our service members are dying. By the way, Pete Hegseth calls them war fighters. The same reason they try and call the Department of Defense the Department of War. They call our service members war fighters because Pete Kegsbreath and Donald Trump are fucking warmongers. I'll get to that in the next video. Don't worry, I got lots of thoughts about that. But let's say that all of the volunteer service members are sent abroad and we let the war machine murder all of them, right? And they all come back home in coffins and they have to do a draft. They're talking about a draft. Like there's no appetite in this country for that. And I've seen a couple of people online being like, oh, well, what about 9/11? There was all of this patriotism for the war in Iraq. Yeah, because we had 9/11. We were attacked on American soil. American civilians were murdered. That was a galvanizing event that caused the American people to come together. It was a justification for the war in the Middle East. All in the name of patriotism, all in the name of protecting the American people. That's how we got the Patriot Act and the Department of Homeland Security, and we got ICE, right? How easily the American people can be convinced to hand over their rights if they're afraid of terrorists. When it came to the post-9/11 period, there was an appetite for us to send service members abroad because there was a perception that they were keeping the homeland safe. Same thing, like World War II, we had Pearl Harbor. We literally had an attack on the United States. Here, what do we have? We have the regime initially lying and saying it was a credible threat that Iran was going to attack us. Sorry, a little bit of my Texas came out there. Sorry about that, y'all. There was no credible threat that Iran was going to attack us. They just made that shit up. And as long as we're talking about how there's no appetite for a draft and that's not fucking gonna happen, it's not just that we don't have that catalyst of something like 9/11. It's not just that there's no kind of surge of patriotism. It's not just that the regime is incredibly unpopular. There's no loyalty and support, and people don't understand what we're doing over there. People don't understand why we are waging war against Iran. And if they do understand, it's crystal fucking clear that it's about Israel, right? Not only have members of Donald Trump's own government, not only have Mike Johnson and others clearly said like, oh, well, Bibi Netanyahu wanted this. Israel was going to attack no matter what. So we had to get on board and do whatever he wanted. Okay, well, sentiment against the regime in Israel is at an all-time high. People are questioning more than ever, why the fuck are we spending billions and billions and billions of dollars to fund Bibi's genocide in Gaza? Like, what the fuck are we doing? We don't have healthcare here in the United States. They've got free healthcare in Israel. We can't feed our own children. We're making cuts to the Department of Education, but we have endless money for endless wars that Israel wants us to fight on their behalf. So the political left is not down with this, but y'all, the political right is not down with this as well. Of course, again, that small chunk of Christo-fascists who are like, this is a holy war and somehow attacking Iran is going to bring about the rebuilding of the temple and Jesus will come again and it will be Armageddon. Yep, that's happening in the U.S. military. There have always been religious freaks in the U.S. military. But an awful lot of the political right is hugely, hugely anti-Israel. Yeah, a chunk of them are just like deeply anti-Semitic, but a bunch of them are also kind of isolationists and are like, why the fuck are we funding another country like this? Why are we spending our tax dollars like this? Right? You have folks like Nick Fuentes, you have the Grapers who are incredibly anti-Israel. They don't want this war in Iran. In fact, Nick Fuentes was on his whatever podcast or whatever the other day saying everybody should vote for Democrats. The Democrats should sweep the midterms and Donald Trump's regime has to go. But you also have more kind of middle of the road conservative Republicans who are not religious zealots, who are like, I'm not down with everything that we're doing to basically serve Israel. I'm not down with spending billions and billions of our dollars. I'm not down with my sons dying for Israel. There's no loyalty, there's no support, there's no appetite for that. And B was saying that we should all just be conscientious objectors, right? Young people should all become conscientious objectors. And in the past, there was a lot of stigma against that because these were wars that we thought were noble and righteous. And the government told us like, this is for the good and safety of our country. There's no stigma against conscientious objecting anymore. Nobody wants their children to go die in this war. There's no reason for it. It's nonsensical. Well, we know what the reason is. It's Donald Trump's last desperate gasp, Republicans' last desperate gasp to hold on to power and to cement their authoritarian regime. It's also about pandering to Bibi. There's no justifiable reason for us, the American people. We don't want this. So there's no stigma against conscientious objection. And this brings me to something else that B brought up. I don't know if y'all know in our household, we're really big fans of Folding Ideas, a YouTuber, which Dan makes great bread tube content. I'm frequently quoting Folding Ideas, but B was like, remember his episode, The Wall? She was like, I watch it every day. I watch it every week if I can. It's really good. She was saying there's this part in his video, The Wall, where he's talking about the Union Jack and he's talking about the British military and past wars. And he says, for all their bravado, meaning soldiers, their deaths are just like blood in the gutter. And B said, kids go to war and die. They don't profit from the war machine. They don't come home heroes, they come home dead. And for what? For what? So that Lockheed Martin can make billions in government contracts, so the Epstein class can continue to control all of us? We're not in a period in time where it's just like hippies on the fringes who are objecting to the Vietnam War. Nobody in America wants this. Nobody understands why we're doing this. It's nonsensical. It's terrible. The regime is literally willing to kill our children and to kill children in Iran for CEOs, for corporations, for the elites, for the ruling class, the Epstein class. Right? That's what's going on. The correct question to be asking is not, why isn't Barron Trump's son going to get drafted with my son? The correct question is, why should any of our children die for Donald Trump's war of aggression in Iran? I don't want my sons to die. I don't want your sons to die. I don't want Donald Trump's son, Barron, to die. None of our sons should be getting drafted. None of our service members should be getting pulled into a war so the Republicans can dismantle democracy and evade justice.